all. So just a few minutes here to share with you the work that I've done so far. And a few people have asked, how do we use this? We'll make digital copies of this when we're done on Thursday. And I encourage you, when you get it, to share it. And don't just email it to people. Use it as an opportunity to sit down with folks and share the work. And walk them through the visual. I did not get everything, I guarantee that. Though you may think it's great, not everything is there. So what happens is that when you go through and start reading it, you'll start filling in the pieces that I missed. So hopefully what I've done for you is to create a strong enough visual framework that you can develop your own narrative. And that's what this is really about, is helping build shared narratives that you carry forth into the community, into your work, to build support for your ideas. Because as we said it, we need to work together. And I think that's the key element that came out of today that I heard, was the importance of better integration is the next step. And so integration meaning collaboration, meaning taking all these pieces to make a whole together, working together. And so it starts with this story of that we must work together, we must come together with one heart, and that we pull this work from earlier gatherings, these 3 conferences that have happened, that fish restoration is possible. And we're here to facilitate a dialogue. And the objectives are to gain broader knowledge, to understand roles, interests, and policies, and the impacts of climate change. Key findings, recommendations, and outcomes, all to support the October 2016 conference. We heard about floodplain functions, values, impacts, and management as our conversation today, day 1. The ancient bends and reaches of the great river. How can we help her? How can we help this wonderful river? And how is the river unlike other rivers? And so in that, there is a way forward. The Columbia River is young, nearly 17 million years old. We move on to the Columbia River Basin hydro system today, and heard about the classic snowpack-driven river, and just the variation of annual runoff volume. The Columbia River Treaty, knowing that water storage doesn't match runoff, that there needs to be more study of flow changes, and there needs to be system-wide flood risk management, and we need to start undoing structural control. We heard from lake to river and river to lake, the understanding of the river floodplain and the story of the sea monster, and I need some help with that story. I didn't get it fully fleshed out. I need to get some key ideas, so if somebody in the room can come to me, I want to get a few more key words. I've got some really cool pictures up here of a sea monster, but that's about it. So flood impacts and just the bloodlines of our people, recognizing that the river and its essence are the bloodlines of our people. Understanding and restoring natural flood plain functions. That there was this pre-development era, and it signifies by the meandering of the river. And then the development era that we're in right now, probably towards the end of it, and the straightening of the river, and what that's done to the whole ecosystem. And then moving into this partnership era, which we're on the verge of. And again, that call to better integration is the next step. So let the stream become itself. Some wonderful words. Stewardship from a cultural perspective. We have the wrong flood management emphasis. We need to change that. Policies for floodplain development, a panel discussion. And we heard from FEMA that there's some consultation with the NMFS. I use as a guide for FEMA to become fully compliant, the Oregon RPA and ESA compliance. Voluntary program, talking about floodplain insurance. Short-term habitat protection is the focus, and getting Region 10 guidance. And then we heard about minimizing the adverse effects of Pacific lamprey. How do we preserve the Pacific lamprey? We heard about the life cycle of the lamprey, and about the best management practices guide of 2010. And the dewatering and stream flow management, dredging, chemicals, toxics, water quality, modifying fish passage, stream disturbing activities. We then moved to perspectives on ecosystem recovery, that 40% of the topsoil is lost on the Palouse, and that's due to dryland agriculture and probably other urban impacts, development. It's a highly degraded habitat when we talk about Hangman Creek. We invest in restoration and regulation, and this river of recovery, restoration, rethinking values and regulation. We moved on to the economic valuation of the Columbia River Basin from a social value, cultural value, and economic value. We talked about restoring the ecosystem function and value in the Columbia River Basin, the economics, the governance, the existence rights, governance, and economics in that order. When we lose an ecosystem-based function, we don't have an economy. We need to have solutions at the scale of the problem. And then we moved our conversation then to some of these quotes that came out of that, where cultural value is priceless, and we do not count future generations less than the present generation. So claiming that, Russell Jim is calling us to claim that. The Burns Paiute Tribal Ceremony Salmon Fishery on the Malheur River, and the fish release. And this is an image with very few words. It doesn't need words. The video is powerful enough, and it speaks to really the work that we're doing here and the importance of bringing future generations into the work and in a very intentional way. The overview of the reservoir operations and flood progress management by the Army Corps of Engineers and the cycle of flow that happens. We heard about the reservoir operations and floodplain risk management in British Columbia and the success of flood coordination, community outreach and managing competing interests when a high volume or high inflow event happened. We heard about the Grand Coulee and Lake Roosevelt operations, the future considerations and general considerations, and then the U.S. Army Corps' climate change and Columbia River Basin, about sea level rise, climate hydrology and policy guidance, ECB 2016, and then what do we do with the information? That this is a really critical piece, that we've been given specialty tools and resources with support by the Obama administration. What do we do with the information that we receive to really start shifting the way that we live and interact in the environment, and doing that together? So this is the first kind of part of the story, and I'll give you an update tomorrow, and then we'll do a harvest on day 3. Thanks, Paul.